Namaskar. Today we are going to learn about the Indian Constitution key features. Before we get into the details of the lesson, please do consider subscription to our channel and help us to reach more number of people, more number of students who need this support. Thank you. While in the beginning of the 20th century, the first point, the Indian national movement had been active in the struggle for independence from the British rule for several decades. So, the beginning of the 20th century, which means from early 1901 onwards, Indians were keen in fighting against the Britishers for several decades. It has been almost 100 years we struggle to get independence. Under the British rule, they have been forcing us to obey the rules that they had very little role in making. So the Indians are forced to follow the rules which are made by the Britishers to follow. The Britishers used to make the rules and force the Indians to follow them. Indians have very little say to do on that, but still Indians have to follow that. So this was a sad part which was there during that particular point of time. So they, Indian leaders, don't want any such kind of rules. The long years of experience of authoritarian rule under the colonial state convinced the Indians that a free India should be equally democratic and should be treated equally for every person, should be allowed everyone to participate in government. So, what happened during the British rule that the makers of the Indian Constitution do not want to repeat that? They want the authoritarian rule to an end. They want a free India which is a democratic in nature. Everybody should be treated equally and be allowed to participate in the government. During the freedom struggle, the nationalists have devoted a great deal of time to imagine and plan what a free India would be like. So during the freedom movement itself, they decided that how India should be there, what all problems we are facing now, that should not be repeated in the future. What remained to be done was to work out the ways in which the democratic government would be set up in India and the rules that would be determining its functioning. So, what all rules that are required to be keeping it determining in the functioning of democratic setup in India. Now, this was done not by one person. It was done by a group of around 300 people who became the members of the Constituent Assembly in 1946, who met periodically for the next 3 years to write the India's constitution. So the constitution makers were very keen and has observed what happened in the past. They decided when they are struggling itself that they will not make sure, sorry, they will make sure that these mistakes will not be repeated. All Indians have to be treated freely, happily, and to be made part of the democratic constitution. In the government's policies, public should have an active role to play. It's not anybody else. It's not a dictate which comes to Indians that they have to follow. The only thing what was left out was how to get this democratic system functioning. So they have to write a constitution. For drafting a constitution, we need the members of the Constituent Assembly. Constituent Assembly consisted of nearly 300 members and which has been known as Constituent Assembly because its main duty is to draft a constitution for an independent India. So from 1946, the Constituent Assembly met so many times and finally it is able to complete after 3 years. The constitution came into existence. Let us see what happened next. Indian Constitution, the Constituent Assembly. Now, the members of the Constituent Assembly had a very huge task on them before they draft the Constitution. In our country, we have people who speak different languages, who belong to different religions, who follow different cultures, different communities, multiple communities, multi-religious, multi-faiths, and also at this particular point of time, we had a great turmoil in our country, that is the partition of India and Pakistan, a painful partition which was really a bloodshed happening on both the sides. We lost nearly 1 million people on both the sides after the partition. Most of the Hindus were forced from Pakistan to leave Pakistan. Most of the Muslims from India moved out of India because they could not protect their rights. That's what they believed at that point of time. Due to this great turmoil and pain, and multilinguistic, multi-languages, multicultural, multi-faiths, and also we have princely states who did not decide whether they have to be part of India or not. So undecided princely states. There are roughly 562 princely states at that point of time. So we need to remember very carefully here, at the time when the Constituent Assembly is drafting the Constitution, there were multi-religious people, multi-languages people, multicultural people. India was going through a great turmoil, great pain of India and Pakistan partition, and there were princely states which did not decide their future, whether they will join the Indian Union or not. There are so many questions which are playing in the minds of the members of the Constituent Assembly, those who are drafting the Constitution. Imagine their state of mind, how difficult it is for them to imagine all these things and still yet plan a great Constitution. They rose to the occasion. I think it would be, we all can proudly say this. The Constituent Assembly members have rose to the occasion and gave our country a visionary document that reflects a respect for maintaining diversity and while preserving the national unity. The Constituent members, each one, rose above from their situation, came out of all these problems and promised that in future this kind of issues should not be there. No religious disturbance should not be there. So, final document reflects their concerns also, like eradication of poverty through socio-economic reforms, socially and economic reforms. And they also emphasized the crucial role of people for choosing their representatives. They also made sure that people will play a vital role in choosing the leaders of their nation. What a great constitution it is. Though they were going through a lot of difficulties, lot of troubles, still they rose to the occasion and written such a great constitution for all the Indians today we are enjoying. We all should be proud of it. What are the key features of the Indian Constitution? Let us see them. There are 5 key features of the Indian Constitution which are discussed here. 1. Federalism. In India, we will have more than one government basing on the levels. So 1 at the central level, 2 at the state level. If we have at least 2 or more, then only we can call such system as federal government. When we have at least 2 or more, then only we can call it as a federal government. That is the first key feature what we are going to discuss. The second important feature what we discussed was that we will have a state level government, central level government, and also the third tier, that is the Panchayati Raj government, which we read in grade 6. We are in grade 8 now. So in grade 6 and grade 7, we read each level. Panchayati Raj was discussed in grade 6, grade 7, the state governments, and grade 8, the central governments, we'll discuss in the coming chapters. And we also have vast number of communities living in India. The third aspect, the system of government need to be devised so that not only involve the people at the capital city, but also everyone in every corner of the country. So the vast communities were devised a system where we will be taking part in the decision making process by participating in the Panchayati Raj system. And fourthly, instead, it was important to have another level of government in the states so that the decisions could be made for that particular area. Area wise, we have problems. So these area wise problems can be addressed by the state governments and not by the central government, because it may take a lot of time, and also the national government can look at the national concern issues, while the states and the local bodies can look at their respective areas. And we also have the details of each tier, each level of government can make laws on the specific subjects which are mentioned. Like, for example, national government will make laws on defense related matters, foreign affairs, currency. State government will make laws on police officials, state duties. Then the local body will make on the local issues. And we also have each level of government having their own areas of work, their own sources of income, so that they can work freely and the federal spirit will not be disturbed. States are not merely agents of the federal government, but also draw their autonomy from the constitution itself. So in the constitution itself, it is been written and given what all the duties the states have to do, what all the local bodies will be dealing with, and what all the central government will be looking at. So those are the key features of federalism. That is the first point what we are going to discuss. The next key feature is the parliamentary form of government. In the parliamentary form of government, we are going to look at the parliamentary form of government consisting all the leaders who are elected or people's representatives. The Constitution of India guarantees every individual citizen equality to vote or right to vote. So the universal adult suffrage for all citizens is guaranteed by the makers of the Indian Constitution. When they were making the Constitution, the members of the Constituent Assembly felt that if the masses were not prepared for the universal adult franchise, this would help encourage the democratic mindset and break the clutches of the traditional caste, class, and gender hierarchies. The members of the constituency felt that freedom struggle should have prepared the masses for universal adult suffrage, and this would help us to encourage the democratic mindset and also break the clutches of the traditional caste, color, creed, region, and religion. The hierarchy differences, whatever we have, that has to be removed, and everybody has to be treated equally. That is the first fundamental right mentioned in the Constitution. So they want to give equal right to vote for everybody, irrespective of their caste, economic status, men, women, whoever you are a citizen of India, you get right to vote. This means that people of India have a direct role in electing their representatives. Yes, people have a great role in electing their representatives. And also, every citizen of the country, irrespective of his or her socio-economic background, can also contest in the elections. This is the one great chance which is given for all the Indians, irrespective of your caste, color, creed, region, religion, and socio-economic background. You can also have to contest, means you can contest in the elections. These representatives are accountable to the people, because it is ultimately the people in their voting, they decide whether he is fit to be a leader or not. If you don't win the elections, you are not able to go ahead, so you will be dropped out by the decision of the public. So this is the parliamentary form. People are the masters, and the members of the parliament are accountable to people for every 5 years of time when the elections come. till now, we discussed about the parliamentary form of government. Let us now discuss the third important feature, separation of powers. How are the powers separated for the people in our country? The separation of powers are done by the constitution into three wings, that is, the legislative, the executive, and the judiciary. So, when they divided the powers, they divided basing on their roles. What is the duty of the legislature? What is the duty of the executive? What is the duty of the judiciary? The legislature refers to our elected representatives. All the MLAs, all the MPs will be the members, or the local body elected leaders group. All will form the legislature. Legislature refers to all elected people. Executives, the second division. The executives are a smaller group of people who are responsible for implementing law and running the government. Let us say Prime Minister, his cabinet ministers, Chief Minister, his cabinet ministers, all the IAS officers, all the bureaucrats come under the executives. When it comes to judiciary, judiciary refers to a system of courts in the country. In order to prevent the misuse of power by one branch or any of the branches, the constitution clearly says that each organ should exercise different powers. Legislature should make laws on making laws, executive implementing those laws. Executive cannot be involved in making laws. Similarly, judiciary, if any conflicts come, if any disturbances come, if they need any disputes to be settled, we can move to the judiciary. So each organ acts as check on the other organ to ensure the balance of power between all the three. So we have three division of powers, that is legislative, executive, judiciary. According to the constitution, these organs of the government are called as three main organs of the government, and this kind of division is called as horizontal division because we are dividing it horizontally. So we call horizontal division of power, that is legislative L, executive E, judiciary J. L, E, J as the horizontal division of powers. So this is about the separation of powers. Next we have the fundamental rights. What are the fundamental rights and why are they important? The fundamental rights are very, very important. But why? Because we need fundamental rights to safeguard ourselves from the arbitrary rule of the government. We have total 6 fundamental rights in the book. Now one is added, right to education. But let us look what are there in the book. First is right to equality. Everybody should be treated equally. Right to freedom. We are free to follow any kind of practices. We are free to travel from one place to another place. We are free to choose the occupation, the dressing style, or whatever our choices. We can fight against the exploitation which is happening with the low payments or children under the age of 14 being employed. All these things can be stopped using these right. That is third one, right against exploitation. The fourth one, we have right to religious freedom. The right to religious freedom gives us the freedom to follow any religion. You may be a Hindu, you want to convert into Islam. You may be Islam, you want to convert into another religion. Any religion you can opt and you can change your religion. You are free to follow any religion. You are free to propagate any religion. But you should not criticize other religions. At the same time, you cannot force people to join a particular religion. For example, as in the screen you can see Dr. Baba Sahib Ambedkar. He was by birth a Hindu. Later, he adopted Buddhism. Similarly, if you wish to, and you are free to change your religion, but for a country, a religion of an individual does not matter because India is not a religious dominant country. India is a secular country. Coming to the fourth cultural right, that is cultural and educational rights. Any culture has to be protected, any educational rights, the minorities, the people, those who came from other state to our state, here they become minority, so they can establish their own schools, their own culture, their own associations, they can form and they can execute. So, and the last one, very important one, that is the right to constitutional remedies. All the 5 rights are just rights if the 6th right is not there. 6th right is considered as the heart and soul of the fundamental rights, because the 6th right ensures all the other rights are legally valid, and if violated can approach to the court and make sure you get their rights valid for you. That's why it is rightly said that this is the concise of the Indian Constitution. The fundamental rights are the cornerstone of the Indian Constitution, because the colonial rule has created certain amount of doubt and suspicion among us. So the nationalists wanted to ensure that a set of written rights would guard against the misuse of state power in independent India. Because we all have bitter experiences in the past, the makers of the Indian Constitution insisted on having written fundamental rights to safeguard the rights of every individual. And fundamental rights therefore protects every citizen like us against the arbitrary and this absolute exercise of power by the states. No state can destroy or override the fundamental right. What did Dr. Ambedkar feel about the fundamental rights? Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has said that the fundamental rights are basically a twofold objective. One objective was that every citizen should be in a position to claim his or her rights. Every citizen has to be in a position to claim his or her rights. Secondly, these rights must be binding upon every authority which makes the laws. So, let us say it's state government, let us say it's central government. Every law-making authority is bound to follow the given fundamental rights. Then only it will be more effective. That's what Dr. B.R. Ambedkar felt about the fundamental rights. Coming to the last part of the session, fundamental rights also guaranteed in the Constitution along with the directive principles of state policy. The Constitution has given a section called Directive Principles of State Policy because it also gave guidelines to the rulers. What are the guidelines? The guideline is that the section was designed by the members of the Constituent Assembly to ensure that there is a greater social and economic reforms and to serve as a guide to the independent Indian state to institute laws and policies that help reduce the poverty of the masses in our country. Why are the directive principles of state policy given? That section is added by the makers of the Indian Constitution to ensure that they will bring reforms in the independent India that will definitely reduce through the policies the poverty of the masses. That's why they have brought this section, so that people will become free from the vicious cycle of poverty. Did it happen like this? That's the $1 million question that needs to be checked. Yes, the efforts were done by the governments to improve people or lift people from the poverty levels, but still the number of people below the poverty level are roughly 26 crore people, which is a huge number. Okay, the fifth key feature of the Indian Constitution is what is secularism. A secular state is one state which does not having any official religion, does not promote any one particular religion. You can see on the map of India where I kept a picture for you, where in India we follow Islam, Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, Sikhism, Christianity, and we have so many other religions, Zoroastrianism, all these religions, but India never has any one official religion for its own country members. The constitution plays a very key role in determining the country's outlook, how the country should look like. The constitution played a crucial role in laying down the ideals that we would like all the citizens of the country to adhere to, including the representatives that we elect to rule us. So the constitution has clearly given the guidelines to all the people on all aspects, including the people whom we are electing, how they have to behave, what they have to do, how they have to follow, everything. Apart from this, they have also worked on amendment structure. They also given a procedure how to amend the Indian constitution basing on the new concerns which are coming over a period of time. So often a major change in the constitution means an amendment, but it cannot change the fundamental structure of the constitution. Though you may get full members in parliament in support to you, but you cannot remove the fundamental rights. You cannot change the preamble structure. So basically, the makers of the Indian constitutions have good foresightedness and have rose above the situation and given a fantastic long living document, that is constitution. In many countries, the constitutions are not followed. Some are rewritten. But in our country, till now, such situation did not come. There are people who questioned certain provisions but did not object the entire constitution. That is a great part of our constitution. Really, we have to salute our constitutional makers. So today in the video lecture, we discussed about the main key features of Indian constitution. Basically, we discussed about federalism, parliamentary form, secularism. Then we moved on to understand what are the other issues that we have. And finally, we learned about the key features of the made by the Constituent Assembly members during 1946 to 1949. Hope you all got clarity on what are the key points that we discussed today. Stay tuned and please subscribe.